Hi everyone, this is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. And today we're going to be inspired about train travel by Mark Smith, who is an ex-train man who loved trains so much he started a fantastic website called seat61.com. And I'd like to welcome you to the show, Mark.
Hello.
Mark, I'm so glad that you're here because, a lot of women in our 60s love travel and many love train travel. But there are some stereotypes about train travel that you help to demystify. And you have, as I said, you've got a great site, seat61.com. And I'd love you to just take a few minutes and tell us what you offer on this site. What's there? What's it all about?
Well, it's a how-to site.
Okay.
So if you first think of where you want to go to, what country, the site explains what the options are for taking trains around that country and what the trains are like, what the best routes are, how you go about buying tickets, what the different classes are, tries to reassure, demystify it by showing you what they're like, because they're all different in every country. That's pretty much that's one of the nice things about train travel, and hopefully it will inspire you and give you options for how you can travel around that country affordably and get the most out of your journeys. Because very often the journeys around a country can be as exciting as the destinations, and I think in this day of air travel we forget that.
That's a really good overview of like being able to plan your trip, buy your tickets. Now, you don't have a way to buy tickets online at your site, but you have a link out to a place where people can purchase tickets if they wanted to, once they've identified where they're going.
For every journey, whether it's around Europe, around the world, I tell people the best way to buy tickets. Sometimes that's direct with the operator.
Right.
Sometimes there's a really good agency. Some people might want to book by phone rather than do it themselves online. So I give phone numbers that people can call if they'd rather do it that way. And I also give you some of the tricks of the trade. Sometimes there's a really cheap way to buy a ticket that isn't obvious when you go to the operator's site.
Yes.
Sometimes operators' sites aren't as easy to use as they should be, so I just hold your hand a bit and explain some of the quirks of some of the site so that you get through the process as painlessly as possible and come away with a nice, good value ticket that leaves you all set for your train journey.
Well, also, a lot of those operator sites are in different languages too. So if you're trying to buy a ticket maybe in Hungary or something, I tried to do that myself. It's really a little tricky if you don't speak you have to eventually perhaps buy the ticket there, but you help to understand what's available, like where, what cities you have to go through to connect.
Well, most of these sites have an English version, so it's the first thing is just to work out where the English button is. Sometimes there's a little EN at the top, which is so easy to miss. But usually you can convert it to English. Sometimes, of course, parts of the site don't translate. So even if you switch Spanish Railways into English, you still have to know the difference between a turista and a cama turista to know whether you're booking a seat or a bed on a night train. So that's where I hold your hand a bit and get you over that sort of problem, or give you an alternative agency that's done a better job that you might not have come across, that explains it, that also sells those cheap tickets, but explains it in a slightly better, more plain English way.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And actually, you have a lot of pictures on the site too. So, if you're trying to visualize, to make a decision whether to do first class or second class, you actually show what the seats look like and what the food may be served in first class. What the meal, you have the plate with the food on it.
Oh, that's right. Nothing beats a good picture. I think if I was selling air tickets, I wouldn't need to show a picture of a plane because everyone knows what they're like. Yeah. But with trains being so different and having different classes, it gets asked a lot, should I travel first class? Should I travel second class? I need to reassure people that in Europe, for example, we have very few peasants and chickens in our second class trains these days. So you're quite safe to go second class, unless, of course, you want to pay extra and treat yourself, because sometimes you can just treat yourself to a bit of extra room and a bit of extra comfort for not much more money.
And free coffee, probably.
On some trains, absolutely. In fact, on the best trains, a nice glass of sparkling wine is what I recommend.
That is so cool. But another thing that you have on the site, which I love, is that you actually, it's almost like a travel guide. I mean, for example, I took a train from, Hamburg to Copenhagen, where you go on the ferry, where the train goes on the ferry. I can't remember, in Puttgarden.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that was going to happen, but I read your site, and I actually had even printed that page off, because you go into very good detail about how just to anticipate what you might be experiencing. So it's all kind of, I don't know, you just make it so easy for people.
Oh, absolutely. It's also, I'm also trying to get to ensure people get the most out of their journey by pointing out some of the things that they're going to pass and see on the way. Right. And in the case of Hamburg to Copenhagen, well, it's pretty unique, isn't it? The train actually going onto a boat for 50 minutes. Yeah. It's part of your vacation. It's not just transportation from A to B.
You also offer some guides to special trains, ones that are either holiday trains or ski holidays. Tell us a bit about that, about those.
Well, there's lots of trains around these days that are specifically designed for tourists and to give tourists a really comfortable experience. It's cruising on rails, basically. The cruise industry has expanded massively on the high seas, and there's also a cruise industry on rails as well. In various countries, whether it's the Venice Simple Orient Express from London to Paris to Venice, or trains such as the Rocky Mountaineer in Canada, these are trains that basically, it's cruising on rails. Just the same process, the same good food, the same ability to see where you're going and meet fellow travelers.
And like I think you said it before in a different video that we recorded about, there's this humanity about trains that, it's just a human experience. It's not a cattle, crowded, sort of plane experience. I shouldn't be so hard on planes because they are cool at certain times. I mean, you do need to fly sometimes. It's much more convenient if you're in a hurry or, but it sounds like you're with a train, you can duplicate the experience and have a great, meet people, great food, time to think, time to plan.
Cruising and trains go together because ships and trains, they're both traditional forms of travel. You sleep in a bed, you eat in a restaurant, you can stand up and walk around, face the person you're talking to. They're the same basic ethos. If you like cruising, the chances are you'll love train travel.
Is there any train journey that you've done that you didn't think you'd ever do again, that was just too crazy?
Well, I'll tell you something. Let's give a train journey on an awful train that was incredibly slow, incredibly late, filthy, broken, and falling to bits. It cost me about £1, about $1, and it was from Aswan to Luxor. And the only reason I took it is that somebody told me that the air-conditioned express that I've been expecting to catch was going to be running 3 hours late. And in rolled this decrepit second and third class slow train. Absolutely awful, falling to bits, but I thought, what the heck, it's going to get me there sooner. It didn't actually, but that wasn't the point, because on this train, rolling down the Nile Valley, past the palm trees, you can actually see where the desert stops and the cultivated land starts and runs to the banks of the Nile. Amazing. First of all, I met these school children who were reading English books on the way to school, and they peeped over the seat, and eventually the bravest of them came round, opened his book, and I had to read his English textbook to him. Yes. And it was all very relevant stuff about what crops his farm grew in English. And they got off and went to school, and another chap got on, about 18, and his opening line to me was, "I like whiskey. You like whiskey? I like vodka. You like vodka?" And he turned out to be a barman on one of the Nile boats that was heading back to his village. And I learnt a lot about village life in the Upper Egypt Valley. So yes, even the worst train journey turned out to be an absolutely amazing experience that I still remember to this day. And that's what it's about, really. Life is about experiences, not about how fast and cheap and convenient you can do everything.
Well, I think it's funny you should be describing it this way with such passion, and it's fantastic to listen to you and talk to you, is that a lot of older women, I think, are getting to this point too, where maybe all of our lives we've done things for other people, it's been expediency in terms of getting things done for our children, for our lives have been defined by work and other commitments. And now when we're a little older, it's like, we can go and be a little crazy. We can do things that nurture the experience of life and give us that buzz again. So I think it's great. Did your wife like to travel as well on trains?
She does, yes, definitely. Although she gets a little wary of having to stand in the corridor where I take all the photographs of the pristine compartment before she's allowed in.
Well, it's wonderful talking to you. I really highly recommend everyone who's listening to go and check out the website, seat61.com, and plan that train journey that you've always been dreaming about, and let Mark hold your hand. Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate your time.